coalition of opposition political parties led by the new Patriotic Party has petitioned the three arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, as they mount pressure on President John Mahama to reverse the suspension of the Chief Justice, Gertrude Torkornoo. The Chief Justice is currently on suspension as a 5-member committee probes into a number of petitions seeking her removal from office for stated misconduct. Numbering in the hundreds, the parties, the New Patriotic Party, LPG, PNP, and NDP, marched through some principal streets of the capital to present their petitions demanding a halt in the removal process, which they deem as an attempt by the president to oust the Chief Justice and put in her stead a Chief Justice who will be sympathetic to the NDC. So listen to Alexander Debunking, who is minority leader, presented a petition to the Jubilee House, which was the point of termination of the protest earlier today.
We believe that what is happening is not good for us. There must be an end to this issue of you do me, I do you. There must be an end to retaliatory politics. In Ghana today, all of us as political actors have a story to tell. Where do we end the vicious cycle? It is not yielding to the whims of hawks and hardliners in our respective political parties that will make us better political leaders. We believe that the hawks must be pushed back onto the fringes so that the centrists can take the center stage for the good of our country. In today's era of social media, you cannot control what gets onto the streets, and this democracy must be protected and safeguarded. So, my respected brother and friend, this is to you. The language is very respectful and decent and expresses our views because we know we are addressing the president. We hope that it shall receive the needed support for the Chief Justice to go back to her office and do her work. Thank you so much.
Well, Alexa Debunking, the Deputy Chief of Staff, Stan Dogbe, who received the petition on behalf of the president, had this to say.
In the office of the president, and on behalf of the president, I'm delighted to receive the petition from the coalition and it will be duly presented to the Chief of Staff for the attention of the president. Let me say that we are happy that your process started this morning and has ended very peacefully. That in itself is a very strong message about the democracy that President Mahama wants to instill in our dear country. If it were the case like this over the past 8 years, I'm sure that the retaliatory politics that you talk about wouldn't have been the case. You referencing retaliatory politics is an admission that the 8 years of President Akufo-Addo and Mahama Bawumia were not the best for this country. You can be assured, however, that President Mahama, as every Ghanaian knows, is not that politician. President Mahama does not believe in retaliatory politics. He's described as, too much of a father for all kind of presidents, and everybody knows that. Whatever actions that are being taken now, whatever decisions that are being taken now, as everybody knows, is in line with the provisions of our 1992 Constitution. Indeed, before President Akufo-Addo left the presidency, he himself had started a certain process where issues were brought to him about the Chief Justice and he referred them to the Council of State. And that is what President Mahama has done. It is not about retaliating on something that was done by the previous administration against President Mahama or the NDC. So the process that is ongoing is constitutional, and I do believe that if the committee that has been set completes its work, whatever decisions that they make, just as the Council of State's advice to the president was binding on him, it will be binding on him. I can assure you and the people of Ghana that we appreciate the fact that just as government, ensured that you went about your demonstration peacefully. There was one also last weekend, peacefully without any attempt at preventing you from expressing yourselves. We would continue to allow for that peaceful expression of ourselves in this country under President Mahama. Nobody is going to inhibit or stop anybody from doing that. That should tell you that President Mahama, in less than 120 days, has demonstrated how he is going to save the democracy of Ghana. He's going to grow the democracy of this country, and we are going to be together.
And that's Standard there, also addressing the leadership of these protesters earlier today. Now, these are the 3-point demands, and that's NPP and that's opposition political parties who protested on the principal streets of Accra today. This 3-point demand they're making. First, President Mahama should immediately reverse the suspension of the Chief Justice. 2, President Mahama must affirm publicly that he is still committed to upholding the Constitution, which includes the separation of powers. 3, President Mahama's posturing towards the judiciary is aimed at amending the Constitution for him to seek a third term. And they say that he should come and clarify if that's not the case. And these are the 3 points, as far as we do know, captured in this particular petition. And on the first point about the suspension of the Chief Justice, I engaged Professor Bafo Agyemendua, who is a governance expert, a former advisor on governance to the United Nations, on whether or not the president had done anything wrong in this particular regard, and then also how the issues are playing out with respect to Article 146. And this is what he had to say. That's the point you make. Nothing done wrong.
Oh, correct. It's the same thing. I mean, when in the previous government, some petitions were sent to President Akufo-Addo, he indicated that, look, I'm just a conveyor belt. It came, because that's what the Constitution says. Do you remember that? So I had a problem with that, by the way, because I've made the argument that even the threshold for really establishing the prima facie, I think is wrong. I mean, if we are really treating a Chief Justice as a head of one constitutional body, I mean, EC or any other kind of institution in our democratic system, I think it's wrong. I place the Chief Justice very high because these three really make up what democracy is all about. That's what I'm thinking, and I believe that we should create a different threshold for removing these individuals, and especially making sure that each of them will be insulated from the other.
As Professor Bafo Agyemendua there. Let's go on to the telephone now, and lawyer Justice Abdulai is joining us. He is a lecturer and also a lecturer at the UPSA Law School and also a private legal practitioner, and he's joining us on telephone. Lawyer Abdulai, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Ocansey. Alfred.
Thank you for making the time to join us. It's been a while. It's good to hear from you.
Yeah, you get another of mandamus against me if I don't show up.
Indeed.
I have no choice.
Thank you. Also with us, Dr. Jonathan Asante-Otchere is a lecturer at the senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast and also a political analyst. Doc, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Alfred. Good evening to my colleague out there.
And I want to start off with you, Lawyer Justice Abdulai, on the demands by the opposition political parties who protested today. They are asking that the president should immediately reverse the suspension of the Chief Justice. I mean, how does this strike you?
I think that the demand generally looked at collectively is a bit confusing. If you take into consideration the fact of the various commentaries made by the MPP right from the moment that this issue became matured and became a public issue, and naturally you cannot take away the positions as outlined in this in the petition as against the public pronouncements made by members of the MPP into account. I mean, the two, I believe, are related because it is a combination of all the comments made on mainstream media by individuals and indeed by the parties that put together resulted in the petition. So I would like to deal with it from that collective angle and ask, what is the basis for this call? There must be a reason for the call. You cannot just simply ask the president to revoke an order made less than 2 weeks ago without providing any basis, compelling reason for making to change the mind of the president. If the president indeed simply follows any call on him and acts in accordance with that call, then there will be no point in him being a president. He must be convinced about a decision. And in this particular decision, the Council of State, based on the constitutional provision, called on the president to act in a particular way. And that way is what the president relied on to literally decide on what happened, i.e., the Council of State recommended the suspension. The president simply followed. The president doesn't even have an option out of it. If you read the necessary constitutional provisions, the president acts based on what the Council of State literally advises him to do. And so if you ask him to revoke that, yes, I agree, the president has the power to revoke it. But there must be a compelling reason. And even though the Constitution doesn't provide for this, but if you are asking the president to revoke it, the president would necessarily have to consult the Council of State. And that part of it is not provided by the Constitution. But once you acted on the advice of the Council of State to suspend the person, you are necessarily mandated to also seek their opinion before you revoke that suspension. You cannot just act arbitrarily. That would then play into the earlier call by the members of the MPP and some other persons stating that the president is acting arbitrarily because he's in breach of Article 296, and which I have completely disagreed with, and I have made my position known clearly on that all those calls and those positions, arguments being made, are completely flawed. There is no substance in any of those arguments. And I have thrown a challenge out there that anyone, and when I say anyone, I mean whether MPP or any other political party, any lawyer for that matter in Ghana, who believes that the president in the quest, in fact, in this whole enterprise of the removal of the CG, whoever believes that the president has acted unconstitutionally within the entire space of beginning from the time that the petition was sent all the way to today, whoever believes that any act of the president is wrongful or unconstitutional, that person, I'm throwing a debate out there, that person should come, let's engage in the public discourse, public debate, for us to go into these matters to determine which part of the provisions of our Constitution has been.
I see. You talk about a compelling reason why. If you listen to the MPP over time, and even before today, and even after the protest today, they say that yes, it is law. The president is following the dictates of the Constitution, as you have also just elucidated. But the law is being politicized, and the rule of law is being weaponized in having the Chief Justice removed because of certain comments that the president made before he was elected president, before December 7th, during that particular campaign period. That's not compelling reason enough?
I think that is quite a childish argument to make, simply because on a campaign promise, the president makes a comment. I do not see how, and I don't even know the particular comment in reference. I think that particular comment has to be brought up, so we interrogate it. I've never heard the president saying that he's going to remove the Chief Justice anyway. I've never heard the president anywhere at any point in time from year 2016 to date stating anywhere that he is going to remove the Chief Justice or he's going to engineer a petition for the removal of the Chief Justice. I've never heard anywhere, whether remote, direct, indirect, in any manner, form of shape, that can be a basis to conclude that the president is interested in the removal of the Chief Justice. I've never heard that one. But I'm open-minded about some of these subjects. I'm willing to listen to some of these issues so we can interrogate it further. I've never heard that anyway. And so that's the first point. The second point is that, assuming that any of these has been said by the president, would that take away a legitimate call on the judiciary to account in any shape or form for their stewardship? Is that wrong? If someone believes that something has been done wrongfully, either by the CJ or any member of the judiciary, which he believes is unconstitutional and wrong, and that person has petitioned, and the constitutional steps are being followed, not the person being persecuted, but the constitutional steps are being followed, and they are being followed in accordance with the dictates of the Constitution, how would that in any way justify a conclusion that simply on the altar of an earlier comment made by the president, the very tenets of our Constitution should be thrown away? How do you even marry these two arguments? That the perception, is it a perception that we are dealing with, or a comment made by the president, or the issue of accountability, for which reason the judiciary is even, in fact, is arguably one of the most respected institutions relative to the two other arms of our governance system?
I see, but yes,
right. How would you even argue with this? That argument is very difficult for me to swallow.
But Dr. Asante-Otchere, you cannot also discount the politics of things, as you know, the MPP is also espousing, to the extent that if you listen to Professor Bafo-Agyeman-Duah, he also indicates that because clearly there are dictates of the separation of powers in our Constitution, but it is the president who also appoints the Chief Justice through other layers in consultation with the Council of State, and then also Judicial Council comes in, Parliament also plays their role in that process. In his view, you cannot discount this matter also being subjected to some politics, isn't it?
Certainly.
I completely agree. Sorry. Alfred.
I want Dr. Asante-Otchere to answer that, and I'll come to you, lawyer.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, certainly that is very political. If you look at the process itself, I'm of the view that the mere fact that somebody who joined the Supreme Court somewhere 2019 met senior colleagues at that particular place and still made the Chief Justice not to subject this current one that has been suspended to any kind of example. But if you look at it from that perspective, then it means that the nomination and appointment of a Chief Justice in itself is very political. It is very, very political, because if somebody joins the Supreme Court 2019, 2021 or so, she is made the Chief Justice. So those that she went to meet, is it the case that she knows the law far better than them, or it is the choice and the decision of the appointee? So if that is the preference, then it is political, if you ask me.
And so the removal, or as it were, any process to have the Chief Justice removed is also subjected to a political interpretation, is it not?
Choosing to eat a particular food in itself is a political decision. In all of it, it is very political. But you see, once you are following the constitutional dictate, then it means you are going by a certain procedural pattern, which in itself will mean that you are going according to the rule of law. The decision to accept the petition themselves in itself is political. It's a political decision on the part of the president. We don't have to mix politics or decisions that are political with partisanship, where they see nothing wrong with the other side, they see everything wrong with the other. In this case, I see that the MPP itself, under the leadership of Mr. Afenyo Markin, they have rather obfuscated the issues. They have rather made the woman's case a little more worse. Because for me, it appears to me like the woman is supposed to be perceived as an MPP, for which reason they are so bent on doing the unthinkable. To the extent of listening to Mr. Afenyo Markin today, before he presents the petition, I dreamed. I said, did he actually utter this particular speech? Because if he did, I don't think that is a mark of a good minority leader. When I say to somebody who say, oh, you detest the person, no. To think, to have that such, unquestionable guess that Mr. Mahama is doing A, B, C, and D to seek a third term, that would never happen in this country. That will never happen in this country. When he is done with his term, Mr. Mahama, as we have known him from the past up till now, he will not in any way hazard that guess. So I see that is a very wild political, I don't know which words to use for now. I mean, it's a wild goose chase that the minority is hazarding. And it is quite interesting. It's just so ridiculous. To be frank with you, if this is the kind of leadership that Mr. Ofinimaki is going to provide for the MPP in opposition, I think that they will have to have a rethink. Because the MPP that look at where they went when they went to Supreme Court, where were the numbers? It is because they are using some kind of false means to create some relevance for themselves, whether individually or corporately. And that, for me, is something that is very, very strange to me, because I don't think that this is the kind of leadership the MPP needs. Because there is nothing at stake. The politics of it, the partisan politics of it, I don't think that is going to help the suspended Chief Justice in any way. And as long as moderate minds believe that what the president is doing is according to the dictate of the Constitution, there's nothing else that they can do. As for the political interpretation, they have liberty to do so, because anybody at all can have a political, interpretation, whichever way you look at it.
Well, no.
But that does not in any way stray away from the Constitution that the president, in consultation with the Council of State, are, progressing with the whole thing. And you see, Alfred, the point also ought to be made that if you look at the constituent of the committee, even mentioning Mr. Domlevo alone, there is a person that, if indeed the woman is not guilty, you do not expect him to say that the woman is guilty. You don't expect Domlevo to tell you that the woman is not guilty, and you tell her he's guilty. You won't do it. That is the kind of person, a man of integrity. So it means that the president wants the process to be marked with huge integrity, so that when everything is said and done, all legal luminaries, all common-minded persons can read in the lines. No, the woman is not guilty as charged. Yes, the woman is guilty, and she must stay suspended, or a new Chief Justice be nominated and confirmed. I mean, that is how it should be. That is rule of law. It's just unfortunate. I wouldn't wish that to my father anyway, but it's just unfortunate that they have gotten to where they've gotten to.
I do appreciate your time on this. Thank you so much. Jonathan Asante-Otchere is a senior lecturer in University of Cape Coast, a political analyst, joining us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. On the third demand that this petition that was submitted by the protesters earlier today, led by the minority leader Alex Anapa-Nyomaken, to the presidency, what we do know, based on what Richard Ahiagba has been telling the media, is that they're demanding that President Mahama's posturing towards the judiciary is, in their view, aimed at amending the Constitution for him to seek a third term. Well, Godwin Ejitamaklo is the Director of Legal for the NDC and acting CEO of the NPA, had this to say to that.
The point that the reason why President Mahama has nominated these 7 Supreme Court judges, if approved by the Parliament, is that he wants a third term.
Very ridiculous.
My learned senior Afenyomaken, what is happening? Senior?
Disinformation is deliberate.
I mean, deliberate. Deliberate. Is it misinformation or disinformation?
Disinformation.
Disinformation. Okay. Look, why would a member of Parliament deliberately court public disaffection for a president who is sometimes called his friend, right? On the basis of deliberate, I call it misinformation. Because one, President Mahama has already publicly said that he has a farm in Savannah region that he can't wait to go on retirement and go to his farm.
That's Godwin Ejiji Tamaklo there. Before we go for best